Now before you ask, no, I'm not too nitpicky, and no, I don't have too much free time. Today we're going to be reviewing the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Spell Card Deck series on this episode of the Local Disaster Tour Guide. Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Mark and I am the Local Disaster Tour Guide. That's right, I'm your friendly neighborhood storyteller, and would you please stop asking me to pass the core rulebook? You should have those spells memorized by now. Welcome to my channel where we talk about role-playing games like Pathfinder and Starfinder. Today we're going to be doing another The Local Disaster Tour Guide reviews. Today we're going to be talking about a gaming accessory put out by Paizo Publishing. It is their spell card deck series for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now right now there are 5 products available in this line, and we're going to talk about all 5 of those today. They are the Arcane spell cards, the Divine spell cards, the Occult spell cards, the Primal spell cards, and the Focus spell cards. This is a series of player aids that has been put out by Paizo Publishing. This is for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and basically these decks are exactly what they say they are. They are spell cards. All of the spells that are found in the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Core Rulebook, with the exception of ritual spells, can be found inside of these decks. The decks correspond to the 4 different spellcasting traditions that casting classes can use. So Arcane, Divine, Occult, and Primal. And then there is a 5th product, the Focus spell cards, that covers all of the focus spells that are found inside the core rulebook as well. Now we don't have time to get into all the differences between the magical traditions and focus spells. For now, the main thing you need to know is different classes may be able to access the same tradition of magic, but focus spells are always keyed in to a specific class. So clerics can use divine magic, and certain variations of sorcerers can use divine magic as well. But the focus spells for a cleric are unique to the cleric, and the focus spells for a sorcerer are unique to the sorcerer. They do not overlap. Now, before we get into the review itself, there is one grain of salt that I always like to give when I do these review videos, and that is, please remember, I am just some random guy on the internet. That's right, I have an opinion, and it is just that, an opinion. I always recommend on any product that we talk about on this channel, investigate the product for yourself. If you can get your hands on the product, if you can see it for yourself in person, maybe even try it out at your gaming table, that is going to be a much better review and is going to give you a much better idea as to whether or not it is something that you would enjoy at your gaming table. I will say that I have used 2 of these products at my gaming table. I presently have a cleric and a sorcerer in the Pathfinder 2nd Edition game that I'm running, so I picked up the Arcane spell deck and the Divine spell deck for them, and I have been able to use that at my gaming table, and we'll talk about how that went. I have not used the other 3 products personally at my gaming table yet, but based on the experience I have with the Arcane and Divine spell decks, I feel like I can comfortably talk about these products. So, as with any review that I do, I always like to start with the conclusion on my review. I want to give you my final thoughts about these products, and then we will work through the review so you can understand how I arrived at my conclusion. First and foremost, my overall grade for the Pathfinder 2nd Edition spell cards as a product line is an A-. Yeah, I'm going to be pretty nitpicky in this video. Let me just say, I like these products, but there is a consistent criticism that applies to most of these products. I'm going to have a lot of good things to say, but there is a common thread of a problem that shows up from deck to deck to deck. However, overall, I do feel like these are excellent products. Like I said, the Arcane spell deck and the Divine spell deck, I have actually used these with players at my table, and they have found them extremely beneficial. The cards themselves are relatively simple. You have all of the information for your spell on one side of the card, and then typically you have an illustration corresponding to that tradition or that class on the back of the card. The vast majority of cards in all of these products just use one side of the card. However, occasionally you do have spells that are complicated enough that they actually use both sides of the card. One of the important positives about these products is each of the tradition spell decks that is part of this product line includes every spell in that tradition. Even if a spell appears in multiple traditions, you will find the card for that spell in that tradition box. They don't tell you, go to another box if you want this spell. Quick example, the Detect Magic cantrip can be found in all 4 magical traditions in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and the Detect Magic cantrip card can be found in all 4 of the spell decks as well. Paizo did not cut any corners and tried to save on cards by removing spells that might appear in multiple products. It's also important to note that the Focus spell deck includes focus spells for all of the casters and for the Champion and Monk class as well in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You'll notice that illustrations appropriate to the specific classes can be seen on the back of the cards, so it is very easy to keep these products sorted if you're using them at your gaming table. One final thing that I really like about these products is these can be very handy player aids, not just in terms of keeping track of the information of your spell, but also helping you keep track of spells that you've used. If you're playing a prepared caster, such as a wizard or a cleric, these are actually really fantastic player aids because once you cast the spell, you can flip the card over or put it back in the box, and it gives you a very easy way of tracking which spells you've used and which spells you still have access to. So, all told, I feel like these products are excellent products, but there is, as I've said, a clear thread of a problem that shows up with this product line. The problem is simple and actually pretty predictable. Some spells just aren't going to fit on these cards. These cards are small, and even if you account for having 2 sides on some of the cards, there are just going to be some spells that you cannot possibly fit all of the text you would want to know on one of these cards. A good example would be this card. This is the Summon Construct spell that is part of the Arcane spell tradition, and the truth of the matter is, summon spells are very flexible, they're very versatile. There are a wide variety of different creatures you can potentially summon, and there is just no way that a card this size could cover all of the variety that you would associate with a summon spell. In fact, spoiler for the channel, these are the kinds of cards you probably need if you're talking about summon spells. I'm still reviewing this product, I'm still looking through this product, but I hope to talk about this on the channel sometime soon. So anyways, it's just a natural question with these products. What happens when you have a spell where there's just too much information to fit on a single card? And how common of a problem is that? Now, one thing that I want to point out is even on the spells where they can't fit all of the information, they definitely give you some of the information. Summon Construct may not be able to tell me everything I'm going to need to know if I call a construct into battle, but they still have relevant data on this card that I can use. As I'm talking about these criticisms, please bear in mind that they still give you some useful information, even if some of the cards are going to have to refer you back to the core rulebook. And in fact, that's basically what some of the cards do. Some of the cards, like Dispel Magic, are going to refer you back to the core rulebook for various reasons. This spell takes advantage of the counteract rules in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and the counteract rules are just a little bit too complicated and a little bit too wordy to fit on a single card. So, intelligently, this product, anytime it references counteract, they give you the appropriate page number in the core rulebook so that you can go and reference those rules when you're using the Dispel Magic spell. And most of the time, when you have a card like that in these products, it's not that big a deal. The rules that are referenced are relatively minor, or you've got a page number to go to, and it's not going to bother you that much. Truth be told, for the majority of these products, for the majority of these spell cards, you're going to find them very useful at your gaming table. However, there are some spells where you begin to wish there was a little bit more. Some examples include chromatic or prismatic spells in the Arcane spell tradition. Often those spells require you to roll on a table, and the table's not going to fit on the card, so you got to go to the core rulebook. Spells like that can become problematic. Other spells that have combat bonuses, such as Righteous Might. Frequently, they leave those combat bonuses in the core rulebook, and you have to go and look them up. But the biggest and most consistent problem are polymorph spells. Polymorph spells cover any kind of spell that has a battle form. So imagine turning into a bear and charging into battle, or turning into a dragon and charging into battle. Polymorph spells are some of the most complicated spells in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and the combat statistics that go with them are very hard to memorize. You may be able to memorize how much damage Fireball deals off the top of your head, but I promise you, you have an exceptional mind if you can remember all of the details of animal form or dragon form. And this is a little bit of a problem for me because polymorph spells are definitely combat spells, and it really kind of stinks that every time I want to use a polymorph spell, I have to go back to the core rulebook because the spell cards just weren't up to the task. Now, obviously, it's a case of too much text, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. I took some time and I went through all 5 of these decks and I asked myself, what percentage of cards can you use as is, and what percentage of cards are you going to need the core rulebook as a reference? For the focus spell deck, over 98% of the cards in that deck have all of the information that you are going to need. About 2% of the cards reference rules that can be found somewhere inside the core rulebook, but for the most part, the focus spell deck actually has everything you need on the cards. I actually really like the focus spell deck, and I would give the focus spell deck an A+ if I was grading it on its own. The Arcane spell deck is the largest of these 5 products. It has about 244 cards, if my count was correct, and 94% of those cards have all of the information that you need. You have 5 polymorph cards and 10 other cards like the prismatic spells that I mentioned earlier, where you have to have some kind of reference to the core rulebook, but for the most part, you still have the vast majority of the information that you need readily available. 94% of the cards have everything you're going to want to reference. I would give this product an A- in line with the grade of this product line overall. The Divine Spell deck is actually the smallest deck in this series. It has about 150 cards. Only 6 of those cards actually reference rules somewhere inside the core rulebook. So you're looking at about 96% of the cards being very relevant, having all of the data on them, and just a very small fraction of the cards are going to send you back to the core rulebook for one reason or another. However, I do have to dock the Divine Spell deck just a little bit because of the Avatar spell. Avatar is one of the 10th level Divine Spells where you can become an avatar of your deity, and one of the things I like about this spell is they have different avatar stats for every deity in the core rulebook, and they don't give you those stats on this card. I really wish, especially given how small of a product the Divine Spell deck is, that they had just given us 20 different avatar cards, one for each deity in the core rulebook. I think it would have been very easy to do. I don't think it would have dramatically raised the cost on this product at all. The Divine Spell deck is definitely the smallest, so this one really hurts, and it knocks the Divine Spell deck down from an A to an A- for me. The Occult Spell deck is the second largest spell deck in this series. It has about 215 cards, and to be honest, it has arguably the lowest ratio of reference cards of all of the four main traditions. The Focus Spell deck does a little bit better, but it covers a narrower range of spells. The Occult Spell deck has the vast majority of information you need. There is a Polymorph spell, but it's actually more of an espionage spell than a combat spell, so it doesn't hurt very much. And there are a few other spells with tables and things that you might need to reference, but again, it's not very impactful. You're looking at about 96% of the cards having the vast majority of information you need, and the other 4% only leave out minor details with page references readily available. I give the Occult Spell deck an A. And then finally, we have the Primal Spell deck. The Primal Spell deck is also one of the small decks. It comes in at about 172 cards, and of all of the products in this series, the Primal Spell deck is the one where the problem that I've been discussing hurts the product the most. The Primal Spell deck has 11 different combat polymorph spells. That is 11 different spells where there are significant combat statistics that you need when you spell, and you've got to go to the core rulebook to get it. Polymorph is a major part of the Primal Spell tradition, but you don't get much information on the cards. Some of the other traditions in this series don't rely on polymorph spells very much, so it doesn't hurt them very much that those spells have less information. But for the Primal Spell deck, this is a pretty big part of the product, and it's a pretty noticeable absence. In fact, the Druid class, they have an entire subclass, the Wild Order Druid, that is dedicated specifically to polymorph spells. It really hurts me when I think about someone who rolls up a polymorph-focused character purchasing this product and realizing that the main spells that they are using, they're going to have to go to the core rulebook anyways. On top of that, every class deck has a few summon spells, but the Primal Spell deck has the most summon spells with 5 different summon spells available. While it doesn't bother me as much when the class decks refer you back to the book for summon spells, because that's just too broad of a topic, it does show up more here with the Primal Spell deck. So when I talk about the Primal Spell deck, I have to knock it down to a B+. Truth be told, about 12% of the cards in the Primal Spell deck are going to send you back to the core rulebook. 88% of the cards having all of the information you need, that's still excellent. You're going to get a lot of mileage out of that. If you're going with, I think it's the Storm Order Druid that's basically a blaster caster, you will probably not have a single problem with the Primal Spell deck, but you definitely want to think about what spells you're using, because there are certain spells where this product line just isn't going to be as useful for you. So that's a breakdown of how this problem affects each of these products. Now, I still want to emphasize, I've seen these products in play at my gaming table, and they've done well. The Arcane Spell deck and the Divine Spell deck definitely pulled their weight at my gaming table. I haven't had a chance to use the other 3 yet, but based on the first 2, I feel like the other 3 are still going to provide a strong and solid support for the player characters that might use these particular game accessories. In fact, one of the things I really like about this product line, this is an accessory that works really, really well for players. If you're rolling up a caster and you know that this is going to be a long-term campaign, this might be a product line that you as a player would be interested in purchasing. This is not necessarily something that the game master has to buy for themselves. I have a spending problem, so I went ahead and got all of them, but honestly, this is something that players could pick up if they were interested in it. If you're rolling up a wizard for a long-term campaign, the Arcane spell deck makes sense, and it's something you're probably going to get some good mileage out of. Same for clerics, druids, sorcerers, bards. All of them can get some good mileage out of these decks. So if you're a player looking at one of those characters, you might want to consider picking one of these products up. However, I do need to add a quick note. I don't know if I can recommend the Focus spell deck as a purchase for a player. Focus spells are their own thing inside Pathfinder 2nd Edition. They work differently from the main traditions. And the thing is, even a very dedicated focus spell user probably only has 3 to 5 focus spells actually on their character sheet. Which means that the focus spell box, even though it has a ton of cards, is probably only going to provide 2, 3, 4, at the most 5 cards for a given player. So the focus spell deck, that might be something that a game master could consider investing in for his table, or maybe something that the group could go all in so that different players could make use of the different cards that they need. I don't feel like the focus spell deck is a good investment for an individual player, but it is definitely something that could be good for a group as a whole. So those are my thoughts about the Pathfinder spell deck series. I think these are excellent products. You should definitely look into them. Paizo, if you are watching this, I would really appreciate it if you would publish maybe a mini deck for the Polymorph Spells. Take the different versions of animal form, or the different versions of dragon form, or the different avatar spells for the divine spell list, and break those into separate cards. Because those combat statistics are very useful, and it would help speed up the game. The absence of those as options really do hurt these products, and I hope with future products in this series that if you release Polymorph Spells, you find a way to include the Polymorph Spell statistics so that people aren't running back to books and eating up too much time at their gaming table. I think that would improve this product line. I sat down and crunched the numbers on the Primal spell deck because it's the biggest offender here, and as best I can tell, there are 49 different combat forms that would need to be added to the Primal spell deck in order to make it a complete set. And here's the thing. Those 49 combat forms, even if they were all their own cards, that would still be fewer cards than the Arcane spell deck. So I feel like this is a reasonable thing that you could accomplish. Other than that, these are fantastic products. I'm definitely looking forward to the ones that will come out in the future. I think it's a wonderful game aid, and you have done a fantastic job. Also, Paizo, if you're watching this, let me just add my voice really quick to the people online who are calling for an alchemical items deck similar to the spell card decks that you have released. I currently have an alchemist as one of the players at my table, and they would absolutely love to have an alchemist items deck, much in the same vein that my casters have been able to make use of these decks as well. I would happily invest in that product. So Paizo, if you're listening, please consider putting out a product like that. So those are my thoughts, but now let's throw the conversation out to you all. Have you used one of these decks at your gaming table? If so, what was your experience with them? Were they beneficial? Or do you have some complaints and criticisms that I didn't include here? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, like it and share it. Subscribe to our channel. I have more reviews coming out, both for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I'm starting to work on Starfinder as well. So if you subscribe, you'll be able to catch those when they drop. But thank you for joining me, and have a wonderful day.